NASA has just released a map that shows some of the biggest UFO hotspots across the entire globe. And one of the places is not going to come as a surprise to you, but it's absolutely mind-boggling. And also, it coincides with a map of missing people over the past 10 to 20 years, which we're going to delve into today because the whole thing is absolutely bonkers. And the further you go into it, the more you uncover, the crazier this becomes. So, this came to my attention when News Nation dropped a video titled "Lincoln County, Nevada has the highest rate of UFO sightings per capita report." Now that obviously won't come as a surprise because what's in Nevada? Area 51. So it wouldn't come as a surprise that there's been a plethora of UFO sightings over there. But let's take a little look at what News Nation have discovered.
All right, if you're interested in spotting a UFO, you might want to check out Lincoln County, Nevada, home to the secretive Area 51 Air Force Base. Probably no surprise there. According to a new report, the county has the highest rate of UFO sightings per capita in the U.S. Reported sightings are on the rise amid recent government acknowledgement of UFOs or UAPs as potential threats.
So, can we just talk about the fact that there has been reported UFO sightings per 100,000 residents between 2000 and 2023? That is insanity. That's a huge amount of sightings.
The latest research estimates only around 5% or less of people who witness unusual aerial phenomenon, though, actually are filing a report. Christian Stepien is the Chief Technology Officer of the National UFO Reporting Center. Thank you for being here. If people see something, why aren't they reporting it?
I think there's a number of reasons people don't report things. One, certainly in the past, there's been a stigma associated with seeing UFOs and reporting them. There's been certainly an attempt by the government over the years to kind of explain away sightings, make people think they might have psychological issues, things like that, especially with the military and pilots. It was very dangerous for people to come forward and report UFOs because
I also think there was not really anywhere to report UFO sightings until this Arrow division was created a couple of years ago. Where could you go? You couldn't, it's not like you could just phone up and report a UFO sighting, but I think some of the points being made here are very valid.
Because it could affect their career. As far as the general public goes, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people simply aren't aware of where to go to report things. So the more that we can promote and make widely known agencies such as ourselves and MUFON where people can report UFOs, the more reports we'll get. I think also people tend to get busy. They tend to just not have time. They're living busy lives and they just don't get around to reporting. What I've found in my own personal life is that if you go talk to your neighbors, your friends, you're almost certainly bound to find people who have seen UFOs but haven't reported them. And they'll tell you stories about things that they've seen in the sky and how amazing they were. And generally, they're just very sincere and very incredulous at what they saw because
I can back that because ever since I've started this whole UFO alien venture on our channel, I have had a numerous amount of messages, DMs and emails sent to me from people who have opened up about their experiences, what they've witnessed in our skies, and just said that I was one of the first people that they've ever spoken to because they've been in fear of kind of opening up, but they feel like this is a safe place where they can kind of talk about their experience, and I absolutely love it and I promote it, and I'm actually going to have a video compiling every UFO sighting that I've had sent in from people with their own footage to put together and kind of bring to you guys because it's astounding some of the things that people capture.
These phenomena are so mysterious and so impressive to see if you're lucky enough to witness one.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen shooting stars. I don't know that I've ever seen something I would consider a UFO, but maybe something catches your attention. Has the stigma dropped with these congressional hearings, do you think? Are you starting to see more reporting?
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, when the congressional hearings came on, we saw a huge spike in reports coming into the center, which we were extremely grateful for. I think, there's so much out there, it's becoming impossible to deny what's going on. So things like the congressional hearing, I think the government is finally starting to say, yeah, there's something strange going on, and at least they're to the point where they're saying they can't explain it. In the past, they were always trying to explain everything away as some weather phenomenon or a misidentification of Venus, things that clearly could not possibly have caused what people saw.
I think as well, with the rise of social media, people are getting their own platforms to be able to speak about their own experiences. So it's not like you have to go through government bodies and officials and news outlets to get your story put across. You can just hop on a YouTube channel, you can hop on your Facebook account, your Twitter account, whatever, and you can post something, and if it hits the algorithm right, it can take off, and people can see what you truly experience. So I think that obviously makes it quite a bit harder for the government to supposedly hide the evidence, if that's what they tried to do.
And there are so many witnesses that are credible, trained aviation experts that know what they're looking at in the sky. We get a lot of reports from pilots, the military, people who certainly would know the difference between Venus and some sort of craft that's making right angle degree turns at Mach 5 and instantaneously. So yeah.
Well, and I think part, Christian, of what leads to the skepticism is the idea of, little green men and, like alien aircraft hovering above your house. So how do you guys at the National UFO Reporting Center filter out the fakes and then deem something worth investigating or that we just can't explain?
This is what I like, because obviously there's going to be a lot of stuff reported, and a lot of it can be logically explained, but I'm intrigued obviously to see, and the way that they describe that they filter it through is pretty clever.
Well, we've had a lot of experience in this. I mean, we've been collecting reports for 50 years. This is actually our 50th anniversary. The center was founded in 1974. So after you've looked at tens or thousands of UFO reports, you can pretty much tell when somebody's trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Of course, it's going to get more difficult, I think, with AI and things like that, when people are going to be able to start deep faking things. But it really is a minority. You'd be surprised at how few of those we get. The vast majority of reports that we get here at the center are, again, very sincere. People are just looking for someplace to tell their story, and almost out of a sense of duty feel that they need to report it. So.
And it's wide open space, right? So we take another look at the map, and I mentioned Lincoln County, Nevada, Area 51 gets the most spots. But what are some other hot spots in the country that people, if they're out looking for something unusual?
Now this is interesting. This is where it gets real interesting, because obviously Area 51, you'd expect there to be a hot spot and people phoning in being like, I've just seen something in Nevada. But the other places are a bit less conspicuous.
Well, first of all, I'd say anybody can see a UFO anywhere. They're reported all over the world, pretty consistently with where people are.
Thank you for watching.
So that is the initial kind of report. Now, I did a little bit of research because I thought, I wonder if this goes any deeper, and it does. Now, this is where things get absolutely bonkers, because the UFO hotspot map, the Pentagon also released one, and this did come out around 2 months ago, and it was broken on GB News. And the video is titled UFO Hotspot Map, Pentagon Release UFO Hotspot Map as World Needs to, quote, recognize the truth. And obviously, so the last one wasn't broken by the Pentagon or NASA, it was an independent body. Let me just find out who it was. It was Axios Report, okay, so it was an Axios report. But this one is actually from the Pentagon, so an actual government recognised body, I suppose.
Is there any insinuation to when you were working at the MOD, or from what you've managed to glean out of Congress at the moment, as to where or why some of these sightings are taking place? Some people make reference to them, above volcanoes. That's been said out there online. Some people make reference to them above nuclear sites. Some people say that there's, some kind of military element to it. They're fascinated by that aspect. There are also, as well, quite a lot of claims from South America as well, Latin America, especially when it comes to the kind of ancient alien astronaut theory, doesn't it? Is there any pattern at all for you, or rhyme or reason as to where they might be focusing on Earth?
The Pentagon's ARROW unit, which stands for All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, a bit of a mouthful, but it's kind of coded speak for UFOs. They've published a map on their public-facing website, which lists some hot spots. I think we still don't quite have enough data. And interesting you mentioned South America. I think one of the big problems is that we have, at present, too much of a US and UK-centric focus on this, and we're not putting the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together, and we're just not recognizing the truth, which is that, as you say, this is a global phenomenon.
And that is so true, because only back in January did we have the reports from, well, let's just look over 2024. Obviously Miami, that's in America, but we had Brazil, we had Sweden, which was inevitably debunked, but still. There was Peru, there was Iraq with the jellyfish UFO. You know, we've had so many places, even in the UK with that alien body that was found not too long ago. You know, I've made videos on all of those so far, so if you want to check those out in full, you know, go back on the channel. But this is a global thing. Obviously, you know, UK, US kind of hot, are the hubs of it all at the minute. I said especially the US, but the UK's up there as well. But this literally goes global.
We need to join the dots more, I think, to figure this out. But the nuclear connection is interesting and concerning, and again, Congress is investigating that as we speak.
Okay, so that was obviously, you know, covering that, but then as we look into it a little bit deeper, I found this TikTok page that goes by the name Chucky Bats. Okay, they made a video on the 31st of January saying that the Kabul's UFO come from underground where nobody looks. They have grey skin because they never see the sun. Now, it gets a bit conspiracy theory towards the end, I won't lie, but the initial kind of thought around it, and there's another map. So basically this guy's got a map of the hotspots in the US, but then he compares it to a map of hotspots where people tend to go missing, and the similarities are alarming. Take a little look at this.
If you haven't noticed, for the past few years the Pentagon has been releasing UFO footage to the public, and now NASA just released a aerial photo mapping out every single UFO sighting in the United States, and people have been starting to see a pattern here. It's much like these two maps, with the top one showing where people have vanished without a trace.
So if you take a look at it and you were to like look at the original map here, hotspots, we're looking here, 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 here. Okay, those are kind of the real big ones. And then if you take a look at this new map of missing people,
the sky or from space,
that was
when you're concave systems.
What is it? There. Hotspot, 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 hotspot. Obviously this area is absolutely ginormous, but it all intertwines from the looks of it. So that's bonkers.
In the United States. This is what I've been saying for years. The bad UFOs come from underground. They don't come from the sky or from space. They come from these underground tunnels where these people live, and they kidnap other people, and they have gray skin, because when your skin doesn't see the sun for many, many years, even at all, when you're constantly living in darkness, it turns gray. And this is what we mean when we say these are the gray aliens, and why people are so shocked and afraid when they see them, because these are bad humans who lived underground.
Now, obviously, that last part I'm not 100% sure on. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on that, though. But it is strikingly strange how the UFO hotspots and the missing people's charts match up. Now, I have found another video that kind of outlines it and shows it a lot clearer. So this video comes from the TikTok page Holaikila. I'll link it down below. You can check it out. I've butchered the name.
I made this map as big as I possibly could for you, and I am not in your way in any shape, form, or fashion, so that you can see the missing people in national parks and state parks correlates with UFO sightings released from NASA.
Now, look at this. This is where it gets so much clearer, because you've got the green dots are obviously the UFO hotspots, but then the red dots are the missing people's area. Look how, like, the areas where UFOs have been sighted are typically also where areas where people have gone missing. Now, am I saying that aliens are abducting people? No. There is no hard facts to back that. But I saw this and I thought it was so odd that these maps line up almost in sync from dot to dot. We've got arguably one of the... Obviously, this is a huge area up here, but I think this is where the Nevada base is, and you've got quite a big hub of people around here that have gone missing.
You can't make this shit up, people. The large green circles are mass sightings, so multiple people on multiple occasions saw a UFO in that area. Look how many missing people are right next to those mass sightings. And yes, people are going to say population, population, population. I have the population map on the last video, and it doesn't match this. You can even look at the small individual sightings and follow them where missing people are. And these are just missing people in national parks and state parks. This is not missing people all over the U.S. I think we figured out the problem. Maybe I'm wilding out just a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is no correlation. Maybe causation doesn't equal correlation like y'all love to say in the comments. But this looks like a fucking Christmas tree to me. How closely they line up.
Now, she's got a fair point, to be fair to her. So, what do you make of that? Now, 3 months ago, there was actually another video released by CBS News that says that more than 270 UFO sightings were reported over 8 months. And that was a report from the Pentagon. Now, we're going to take a little listen to this, because 270 UFO sightings over 8 months is quite a steep amount.
The U.S. government releasing a new report on unidentified anomalous phenomena, what most people know as UFOs. The report found that between August of last year and April this year, the office tracking these sightings received nearly 300 reports. Some of these incidents are still under investigation because they could pose a security threat to U.S. military operations, especially aviation.
That's insane. That some of them are still under investigation. I mean, we've gone from a period where people were told that they were crazy, they were seeing things, there was psychological issues whenever they reported UFO sightings. But now they're being taken a bit more seriously and they are under closer investigation. Obviously, there's a lot of tension in the world right now. I'm not going to pretend that's not the case. I don't want to get political, but, there's a lot of tension between countries. So it would make sense in that aspect that they would be reported or checked a lot closer or investigated a lot closer, because it could be other countries, with other aircraft, sorry, not spacecraft, but, that's being a bit on the fence with
Let's bring in Chris Impey, a professor of astronomy at the University of Arizona. Chris has more than 210 publications on space and has written about past sightings. So, Chris, the report says there's no evidence that any of these objects came from outer space. Is that the final word?
That's been the word for the last few years, from the NASA committee, from the congressional reports to U.S. Congress. It's been consistent. Nobody's seen little green men yet.
Okay, so have officials made the data available to outside experts for an independent review?
They will make all the unclassified data available, and the data that the NASA committee is studying, hundreds of reports, is also going to be made available. The classified stuff has to go through a very torturous procedure, so I'm not sure civilians will get to see that.
Right, I know all about declassification. So what do we know about that data that is classified? Any hints?
Well, I think it's mostly classified because it occurs, near military bases or whatever. And I suspect the type of data we're looking at involves radars or particular imaging devices that the military just doesn't want to publicize. So it's not a question of what the data shows, it's a question of the detectors that they're using.
So this is really a question of sources and methods and revealing how good the U.S. military techniques are.
Exactly. It's a sort of intelligence issue. Same would be with the intelligence agencies.
Okay, so let's go a little deeper on the risk these objects could pose to U.S. military operations. What does that look like?
Well, the report says there were no indications of direct threat to the military pilots who saw them, or I think the commercial pilots. So it's very interesting because they're not, intervening. I mean, obviously, American military deal with incursions, and proximity of Russian or Chinese pilots where there's real risk and danger. That doesn't seem to be happening here. So they're at a sufficient distance that they don't declare it a direct threat.
It makes you wonder what they're here for. Is it just to kind of scope things out? Is it to get eyes on day-to-day goings-on? If it's extraterrestrial, but then again, the same questions asked as if it was another country's space aircraft. Sorry, what's the purpose of them being there? Why there? Why now?
So, just to bottom line it, what explains all of this?
Well, some of it's in the report. The report's pretty slim, actually, only 12 pages.
That is slim for a government report. Let's be real,
exactly.
Okay? Exactly.
And only 5 pages of text. So they talk about the shapes. The shapes are interesting because in more than half of the cases where our shape is reported, it's a sphere or a spherical object. That's kind of interesting because anyone who knows a bit of physics knows that spheres are not very aerodynamic. And so none of our high-speed conveyances are spheres. Weather balloons are spheres, so maybe some of these are weather balloons. So that's one thing that jumps out in the data. And the other is the geographical distribution, which wasn't called out much in the report, but there's a map. And the sightings are very interestingly clustered. They're mostly in the southern U.S. The big hotspot is the southern U.S. coast, East Coast, where there are a lot of military bases, some in California, and then a huge number in the Persian Gulf and over Iraq, and then another huge number over China, which is also interesting because most of these seem to be U.S. sightings, so I'm not sure where the Chinese data came from.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. So just to take that a little bit further here, so there are 4 hotspots where you have these sightings, 2 in the U.S., the Gulf, and then China. What do you think explains that?
They're not uniformly distributed at all, and that's been the case of UFO sightings going back to Roswell. Going back 80 years. If you plot them, hundreds of thousands of sightings on a map, the U.S. gets a lot of sightings. They fall off at the Mexican and Canadian borders, which doesn't really make sense because if something's in the sky over the border, Mexicans should see it as well as Americans, and Canadians should see it too. Brazil, a country with the same population and size roughly as the U.S., hardly any sightings, very, very few. So it's not uniform. This seems to be an example of American exceptionalism. I'm not sure why.
Or curiosity, right? Or looking for the unexplainable, kind of trying to look for an answer there. Chris Impey, thanks.
So that's interesting right there. But then, obviously, there's been a lot of pressure on the US government with such a large amount of reports coming in about what they're doing or how they make sense of the rising UFO sightings, which was actually something that was posed to them in an interview recently.
On Wednesday, the Senate Armed Services Subcommittee on Emerging Threats and Capabilities heard highly anticipated testimony from Pentagon officials about a phenomenon that has been a source of public intrigue for generations: unidentified flying objects. There were no photographs of flying saucers or extraterrestrials hauled in as witnesses, but the Department of Defense did say it is reviewing hundreds of incidents of pilots coming across something in the sky they just could not account for. So how does the government explain those UFOs, and is there other life out there? NBC's Kathy Park has our Sunday focus.
For generations, our fascination with UFOs and aliens have fueled hit TV shows like X-Files, iconic films,
E.T. Phone Home,
and comedy sketches.
They were gray with big fat eyes, little mouths.
But for some real-life pilots,
it's not a satellite, it's not a meteor.
Mysterious objects they've recently spotted in the skies are proving that truth is stranger than fiction.
There's nothing that flies that high. So the odds of it being a military aircraft doing high G loads like that, it's impossible. It's either artificial or biological.
A Pew Research Center survey shows 2/3 of Americans believe intelligent life exists on other planets, and more unexplainable sightings are adding to the growing push for answers from the U.S. government.
We cannot keep turning a blind eye to surveillance data that is critical to detecting and tracking UAP.
This week on Capitol Hill, the top Pentagon official reviewing unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP, says they're investigating roughly 650 cases. That's up from more than 500 reported at the beginning of the year.
The majority of unidentified objects reported to AARO demonstrate mundane characteristics of balloons, unmanned aerial systems, clutter, natural phenomena, or other readily explainable sources.
Whoa, splash. And so far, no proof any of them are aliens. But with a team of researchers, Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb is leading on science to dig deeper.
Even if we have 1 million fuzzy images from cell phone cameras, they are not equivalent to one crisp image with high resolution from a well-calibrated scientific instrument.
Loeb is planning an expedition to Papua New Guinea this summer to search for what he thinks may be an interstellar object that crashed down there in 2014.
Finding evidence for extraterrestrial technologies could provide us with a glimpse at our technological future, because that would be the biggest discovery that humanity ever made if we happen not to be alone in our cosmic neighborhood.
And even if...
Okay, so I'm going to stop that video there. If you want to check it out for yourselves, go over to the Sunday Focus or to the Today YouTube channel and you can check it out for yourselves. But I wanted to collate all of this, put it to you guys just to see what you make of it. So what do you make of it? Let me know down in the comments below, and while you're down there, be sure to jump scare the hell out of that like button, subscribe if you are new, and tickle my little bell so you get notified whenever we upload. And until next time guys, I hope that you've enjoyed, and I'll speak to you later. Peace.